thank both speakers on both sides for their very spirited starts in this debate. And now we move into the first period of cross-examinations. Mind you, questions last 10 seconds, responses 45 seconds. So the opposition team will begin by fielding their first three questions to the proposition team.
My opponents, debating is a form of traditional method. How does your arguments accommodate the traditional methods that are relevant today? Debating, as we're doing now, is a traditional method. How does your argument support that it is relevant today?
Okay, to simply answer, we do not argue the relevance of traditional study. What we argue is what is better, which is simply stated in the motion.
So you're saying that traditional methods are better, right?
No, this is not a good versus evil
So
debate.
in essence, what you're saying, this is not. Question, please.
This is not a good versus evil debate. We're not arguing for the eradication of traditional teaching methods. We are simply stating that through research, through thorough research, our motion is far superior.
The mood suggests, hold on, the mood does not suggest that one is far superior. The mood suggests that one is better. How does your argument support your claim?
We just answered the question. We're not saying that we're eradicating traditional classroom method. We're saying that unstructured exploratory learning is the better method for the future.
All right, so this will be your third question, just to note. So this will be your last question in the first period of cross-examinations. You're allowed 3 questions, you just ask 2, yeah? So make this third question count. So you guys remember, you have 3 minutes within which
All right, my opponents, can you clarify how students are assessed in an unstructured system, especially in an exam-driven context like Jamaica?
I should think would do it the same way they have been doing it before. After learning, there is tests. What do you mean that not going to be any better method to test them? Have you considered PEP?
My opponent, once you
okay,
mention...
no. I'm so sorry. That was 3 questions. I'm so sorry. Right. So now we move to the proposition team. We'll field 3 questions to the opposition. Guys, just to clarify, when you ask questions, they answer. All right. After your 10 seconds has elapsed, you stop. Then you listen to them for their 45-second duration. It is perfectly acceptable for you to ask a follow-up question, which would constitute being your second question. All right. So anything you ask of them will constitute a question. And you also know you can't make statements and expect them to give an answer to a statement. You have to ask definitive questions. All right? Cool.
All right, so our first question is, if misconceptions surface only on end of unit tests, how do you catch and fix them earlier under a lecture heavy model?
My opponents, let me inform you as to the structure of a structured classroom. In a structured classroom, you have both formative and summative assessment. So therefore, the teacher would have clarified all misunderstanding in their formative assessment before they reach to their summative assessment.
Next question. Right.
All right, my opponent, you stated that unstructured exploratory learning is not planned. Could you clarify that for me, please?
My opponents, according to our scholarly and research definition of unstructured exploratory learning, and I quote, let me remind you of what I said. It is a learning model that is not planned. It is not organized and does not have progression, meaning students are free to do what they wish in such classroom.
As a teacher in training, are you aware of what the 5E lesson plan is?
My opponent, I'm very aware of the 5E lesson plan. And in fact, at each stage of the 5E lesson plan, assessment is needed.
Okay, we thank both teams for those very spirited questions fielded to each other during this period of cross-examination. We now welcome the second proposition speaker to the stage. Mind you, you have 6 minutes within which to deliver your substantive speech. Here, here.
Yeah, I prefer that one. Yeah. Chair, judges, and worthy opponents, good afternoon. First of all, I'd like to clarify the model. Let us not play on the ambiguity of the term unstructured. It is learner-led sequence with teacher-set feedback. This is not leave them to flounder. It is not unguided learning, it is unguided learning, not unguided teaching. Therefore, let us now focus on schooling by the measure that only truly matters. When life hands our graduates a problem with no backup book answer, can they frame it, build a solution with others, and defend their choices? On that test, classrooms built around unstructured exploratory work, learner-led investigation with firm teacher guardrails, consistently outperform procedure-first routines because students practice the future every week. They frame, they make, they explain, they refine. Employers are not coy about this. The World Economics Forum's Future Jobs of 2023 names analytical thinking and creative thinking as the top 2 skills across industries. The US National Research Council defines the prize as transferable knowledge and skills, concepts, strategies, and dispositions that support transfer to new situations. The OECD's Future of Education Skills 2030 adds the destination, student agency, learners who can set goals, act, and reflect with others. UNESCO gathers the same cluster under transversal competencies. critical and innovative thinking, interpersonal and intrapersonal skills, and not accepted. If readiness is our metric, lessons must provide regular reps at framing, making, explaining, and revising, not just listening and repeating. Let me be crystal clear. Unstructured is not unmanaged. In the classroom, it means students aren't handed a step-by-step script. Instead, the teachers design the challenge, set milestones and rubrics, enforce safety, assign team roles, time box work into short sprints, and steps within 2 to 5 minute micro lessons precisely when a group hits a bottleneck. You'll hear the teachers, not accepted, you'll hear the teachers' questions more than long monologues. What does your starting value mean here? Where do the plans break even? Which evidence supports that choice? Teams draft, test, get peer critique, revise, and present to an audience. The sequence is grounded in research. The ICAP framework shows learning deepens as students move from passive, which is listening, to active, common copying steps, to constructive, producing new ideas and products, to interactive, co-creating, critiquing. The more learners generate and co-generate meaning, the stronger gains are. It also aligns with constructivism. We learn especially well when we build public things, with code experience, reflection, abstraction, and experimentation cycle. With self-determination theory, which finds that autonomy, competence, and relatedness fuel motivation and persistence. We still teach explicitly. We still move the explanation after a brief attempt, so the idea has something to stick to. At this juncture, I invite you to observe a live class, a living, breathing picture of what this kind of learning looks like. Picture a regular 70-minute biology lesson on nutrition in humans, run as unstructured exploratory learning with firm teacher guardrails. As students enter, the board shows a live brief designed a one-day JMD $600 school lunch plan for a moderately active grade 10 student that meets energy needs and hits targets for iron, fiber, and added sugar. Use local foods. Be ready to defend your trade-offs. The class forms teams of 4 with simple roles: facilitator, data checker, modeler, presenter. A timer starts for a 10-minute sprint, and the teacher hands out a one-page pack, a short table of local food prices and nutrition facts, a blank menu template, and a visible rubric with 3 criteria: a sound nutrition logic, evidence
Point of
use,
information.
not accepted, and clarity of justification. There is no step-by-step script. The teacher circulates, asking precise questions. What does moderately active mean for energy needs in your plan? What food in your draft is carrying iron? What happens if you swap breadfruit for rice in the budget? And records common misconceptions to address later. This keeps students in ICAP's constructive, interactive bands, which they are generating and co-generating meaning, rather than copying steps. At minute 12, after hearing 2 teams misread labels, the teacher pauses for everyone for a 3-minute micro lesson on how to interpret serving size and energy density on Jamaica nutrition labels. In short, targeted and immediately reused by teams on their own menus. Work resumes for another 12 minutes. Students calculate totals, swap items, and stay under the budget, annotating menus with deep brief nationals. This is constructivism in practice. Students are building a public product, and the class is moving through code cycle: concrete experience through drafting the menu, reflection through peer queries, abstraction through mini lesson, and experimentation, which is through revising the plan. The room sounds like a studio. If we add callaloo, we raise iron without adding sugar. But if fiber drops, we can switch the juice for water and free money for a whole grain side. Thank you.
We thank the second speaker for that very fine speech and welcome the second speaker on side opposition to the floor. You're here.
Good afternoon to you all. The proposition has relied on misconceptions about traditional classroom methods, lest we forget The motion says methods, plural, not method. The idea that only face-to-face, passively receiving information and not also using constructivism methods is preposterous. For instance, integration is a powerful traditional classroom method. Think of STEAM, science, technology, arts, engineering, and mathematics, not in that order. Think of special needs and gender diversity. Traditional classrooms have always incorporated such considerations. You cannot blame methods for a problem with the educational system. Blame the humans that are not effectively using them. Not accepted. It's in my protected minute. As my first speaker outlined, I will continue the comparative analysis through the lens of traditional methods. My presentation will be four-dimensional. Number one, traditional classrooms provide a multitude of opportunities for students to foster their social skills, their teamwork, and communication by interacting with their fellow peers through discussions, group projects, and shared learning experiences, which help to build social skills and their confidence. Studies carried out by the University of the West Indies in 2016 show that notwithstanding human failure, the curriculum used in Jamaican schools is structured to shape social identity, teaching students punctuality, respect, and accountability. Traditional schooling ties social learning to both formal and informal programs in holistic development of students. Sports, group projects, and school-based social and emotional learning initiatives like Return to Happiness in 2022 gave students a safe, guided space to practice empathy, teamwork, and leadership. Point number two, ladies and gentlemen, the traditional classroom methods are better than unstructured exploratory learning because it provides consistent assessment and accountability. Traditional classroom methods have a good record of meeting performance targets. In just August of this year, the Education Minister, Dr. Dana Morris Dixon, presented a report on the National School Learning and Intervention Plan, which included extra lessons and provision of digital learning resources, all based on assessment data of schools with performance challenges. The Fair Prospect High School in Portland was cited as one of these schools that improved from this traditional assessment-driven method. For this school, the English language pass rate at the CSEC level went from 9.5% in previous years to a whopping 73.7% in 2025. This illustrates that traditional classroom methods can directly translate to better student outcomes, as it is stated in the motion. My third point, judges, is one that hits close to home. Structure protects equality. In developing countries such as Jamaica, where not every child has access to the same technology, home support, or resources, unstructured learning widens the gap. It creates two Jamaicas, one for the privileged and one for the forgotten. Unstructured learning assumes that every child can teach him or herself, but that is a luxury, not the reality. Traditional classrooms, on the other hand, are the great equalizer. And my final point, the moot does not limit us to Jamaica, and the research shows thus. Through unstructured exploratory learning protocols, experimental schools were established in England in the 1970s, but failed with the British Broadcasting Commission using terms such as anarchic, meaning chaotic, to describe them. That is from De Castella 2014. Many low and middle income countries have experimented with different learning improvement protocols but found that structured pedagogical interventions or traditional methods yielded better results, especially in terms of literacy and numeracy, in which we struggle with today. Without structure, my opponents, we don't just risk failure, we risk injustice. Thank you.
Right, so we thank the second speaker for that very fine speech. Now we move into a second period of cross-examinations. Just a point, this period of cross-examination will last for 3 minutes per side. So the period of cross-examinations where we have oppositions, fielding questions, the prop, it will last 3 minutes. So after that 3 minutes has passed, if there's any period of like stuttering or not being able to ask questions after that 3 minutes has passed, we'll just move right along to the next side. Similar structure, 10-second questions, 45-second response, all right?
Excuse me, do we go first?
Your opposition, yeah, no, it's up to prop, yeah, so opposition to prop, yeah, similar structure.
Okay, so my opponents, if you are arguing that exploratory learning is better, why do CSEC and PEP results consistently improve under guided traditional teaching?
With reference to the primary exit profile exams, are we then saying that these exams do not allow for creative thinking to then answer the question? Do we negate the opposition? Do we negate the concept of critical thinking in passing these exams?
That is not what I asked. I asked why do they consistently improve under traditional methods. I did not ask if it was a problem of them not being creative.
You are arguing a problem. It's not a problem, but it's not changed. You know, remember that we first did common entrance, and then we moved to GSAT, and then we moved to the primary exit profile. The primary exit profile examination particularly allows for critical thinking and not in the traditional sense. Furthermore, we must speak to the CSEC exams, which also implement the use of school-based assessments, which also apply for which also call for real-world application and critical thinking skills, which are explored in unstructured exploratory learning and not the traditional learning.
Okay, thank you.
My opponents, scholars argue that traditional classroom methods such as scaffolding or being a facilitator can be used in online spaces, especially since COVID-19 and the surge in online and blended learning. We have seen this. If this is so, my opponents, why do you perceive a rivalry between unstructured exploratory learning and traditional classroom methods? Scholars argue that traditional classroom methods such as scaffolding or being a facilitator can be used in online spaces, especially since COVID-19.
All right,
And
speaker, I'd just like to ask you, keep your question to 10 seconds, please. That's like almost 20 seconds. So you can ask again, but just within 10 seconds.
Okay. My opponents, why do you perceive a rivalry between unstructured exploratory learning and traditional classroom methods?
My opponent, we do not have a rivalry. We're doing a contrasting to determine which method is better for the future.
All right, we thank that was your third question. I'm sorry. We now ask the proposition team to field 3
question. When you say traditional, what exact method mix are you defending and what proportion of time does each occupy?
Could you repeat the question, please?
When you say traditional, what exact method mix are you defending and what proportion of time does each occupy?
Traditional methods, in the sense that we have guided learning and teaching with scaffolding.
Next question. Show one credible study where sustained lecture first instruction beats exploration, then explanation on transfer measures, not focusing on immediate recall for our novices.
Again, I'm having trouble hearing you. Can you just please repeat that question?
Show one incredible study where sustained lecture first instruction beats exploration, then explanation on transfer measures, not focusing on immediate recall for our novices, meaning fresh.
My opponent, the mood says methods, not method. And when you make reference to lecture, you're making reference to one dimension of structured learning. In fact, in United Kingdom, a recent report stated that there has been a call for structured learning, especially in literacy and numeracy, which has improved their rate exponentially. Likewise, in China uses a structured system and their literacy rate is also at 90%. Another success story is also Finland, who utilizes a mixture of both, proving our point that unstructured method is better and that structured
speaker,
method is better
right.
and unstructured exploratory
Speak
cannot
up.
stand on its own.
Please, just keep within the 45 seconds. All right. If I interject, you can just stop. All right. Cool. That's your third question now. Cool. Go ahead.
You speak of equity. My question to you is, how does your model guarantee participation and feedback for a quiet or underprepared student?
Could you repeat that question?
In your speech, you said there is need for equity in lessons. We would like to know how your model guarantees participation and feedback for quiet and or underprepared students in the classroom.
Okay, according to the NSC, there should be a standard curriculum or a standard lesson plan that touches all students in the classroom. There's such a thing called group work, where you pair the students who are not participating with students who would, to ensure that all students have come up with a consistent framework. Thank you.
Right, so we thank both teams for those very spirited questions and the subsequent responses to these questions. Now we move into a 1-minute grace period. The time starts now. We'll start with the opposition team. Will deliver the first rebuttal speech, followed by the proposition team. All right, so that's Case, then GC Foster. Pardon? So this is the third speech. Yeah, final speech. Right, so 1 minute has elapsed. So we welcome the third speaker on team opposition to deliver their final substantive in this debate. You have 5 minutes to deliver, right? And just to remind everybody, no POIs are to be asked within the speech, all right?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, judges. Unstructured exploratory learning may sound modern, but it miserably fails the practical test. It does not build resilience, it builds confusion. It does not ensure personalization, it creates inequality. Structured, guided, and equitable classroom methods remain the best method and path for our children. As the opposition's third speaker, my task is twofold: to rebut the proposition's weak arguments and restate our stance. First speaker proposition, you argued that creativity and innovation are not embedded in traditional methods. This is a misconception. Second speaker proposition, you asserted that traditional methods are time-consuming and outdated. Please allow me to do some house cleaning. Honorable judges, my teammates have shown clearly that unstructured exploratory learning might sound attractive in theory, but as you heard from my first speaker, in reality, it is messy, unreliable, and deeply unfair to students. It leaves too much to chance. It disadvantages weaker learners. It removes the very guidance that helps students succeed in a future comprised of technology, globalization, and hybrid work. A future requiring skills of critical thinking, problem solving, creativity, among other skills. The proposition tried to deceive us with the inaccurate notion that traditional methods cannot facilitate the development of these skills. But our second speaker, thankfully, has emphasized that methods refer to strategies. Humans have to effectively use them. We cannot blame the methods for our shortcomings, my opponents. Ironically, as my first speaker observed, the proposition members are training to be teachers while proposing a model that questions the relevance of teachers. My second speaker argued that from a Jamaican perspective, the Ministry of Education's own guidance makes it clear. These social-emotional skills are being built within structured classrooms and co-curricular activities and frameworks. He did not limit us to Jamaica, but he cited the dismal failures of experiments with unstructured exploratory learning in other parts of the world. Without structured routines, my opponents, students may know content but lack discipline, maturity needed for success in work and society. Simply put, if we remove traditional methods, we remove the most consistent platform for developing the whole child, not just the academic side. Now we anticipate the third speaker proposition. Sadly, it is too late, my opponents, too late. Third speaker proposition, we are at the reply speeches. No new arguments. Indeed, you will have to continue on the inaccurate foundation set by your first and second speaker. Unlike the proposition, we presented our claims. The corresponding warrants or evidence, and we considered impact. What does your stance ultimately mean? We cannot afford to gamble with the future of our children on unstructured theories that sound good in practice but collapse in theory. Traditional classrooms have already proven their worth. They build discipline, accountability, and measurable success. If the classroom is the engine of progress, then structure is the fuel. Without it, Jamaica stalls. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you.
We thank the third opposition speaker for that very fine closing for side opposition, and welcome the third speaker on side proposition and hereby the final speaker in this round to close out this debate. Here.
Mr. Chairman, judges, my worthy opponent. Now, I just want to highlight that I am not here to throw shades like the breadfruit trees that you have down here in Portland. What I am here, and I'm not here to spit rhymes like Corey. What I am here to do, however, is to point, as the closing speaker, is to simply, firstly, clarify to my worthy opponents that we are not confused about the stance that you're taking. What we're simply saying is unstructured method is better for the future going forward. First, the test. From the very start, we set readiness as the measure that matters when there is no back of book answer. Can a graduate frame the problem, work with others to build solution, and defend their choices with evidence? Our first speaker defined the terms and anchored them in research and employers' expectation, analytic and creative thinking, collaboration, communication, digital data literacy, self-direction, and ethical judgment. Those aren't buzzwords. These are currencies of employability and citizenship. And she showed the evidence from education and cognitive science that approaches which make students think, inquire, and explain outperform lecture and recitation for depth, durability, and transfer. Second, the proof. Our second speaker took the standard and made it visible. He showed you how unstructured explorative classroom actually runs with frame teacher guardrails. You watch learners weigh constraint, use data, defend trade-offs, and lock accuracy and concise. Just in time teaching, we call it. You also saw where this isn't a boutique idea. It is routine in real programs in Jamaica and abroad. From coding in schools and JA Company to FIRST Robotics in Singapore Applied Learning Program and Finland Phenomenal-based units. These are normal timetables producing public products and public explanation, week in, week out. That is readiness in action. Now, let's weigh. The opposition's case rests on three phenomenal worries. That our model is chaotic, that is that it neglects accuracy and examination, and it is unrealistic for schools. Our reward answer each one. On chaos, unstructured does not mean unmanaged. The teacher will design the challenge, set milestone and rubrics, policies, safety, and delivers tight macro lessons at the moment of need. Students don't wander. They work inside a bounded brief with clear response or roles, time boxes, and public criteria. That's why the classes where we shown is
sounded like studios, not circuses. If anything, its traditional lecture heavily that often produce silent compliance with evidence of understanding, neat notes, and shallow learning. Realism. Jamaica's own program already runs this way. Coding in school as the students design behavior tests, debugs, and presents. JA Company has team price, market, keeps books, and pitch to real judges. First team document. And this is to clarify something that my opponent said earlier on. Decision tests systematically and define trade-offs under changing brief internationally. Singapore and Finland have normalized design and make brief milestone critiques and community exhibition. I thank you.
We thank both teams for that very spirited match. With that, we invite both teams to come across the stage to shake hands in the true spirit of debate and democracy. While
Ladies and gentlemen, you have heard unstructured exploratory learning better prepares students for the future than traditional. Unstructured, traditional. Now, we'll invite Monique Teachers College and Church Teachers College to debate the moot the motion. This House believes that school funding should prioritize academic clubs such as debate, science, etc., over sporting programs in school. We have Monique, we are with Church Teachers College. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it for who you think won the first debate. All right, while the judges deliberate, I heard a name. And I heard another name, so the judge's decision is final, and they will announce the winner after the second debate. So you will have to stick around if you want to hear the winner. So we'll start after the judges say we can go. So bear with us.
Okay, so before we begin the next round, I'm inviting somebody from either GC Foster College or CASE to join us on panel in judging this match between Monique College and Church Teachers College. Any volunteer? So,
That sounds more like it. Shorts? Skirt? Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to invite you to listen to the serenading sound of my voice. There we go. That is it. That is it, Louise. That is it. That is it. Sound like it? All right. Some demolition shall take place on this mic. That is it. Cordless. Oh, oh. This seems like it's in order. Almost. Almost. Not quite. Not quite. There we go. There we go. All right. See it there? People shake head and bear things and all. Yes, that is it. Good? All right. Are we hearing me? Almost. Islands in the sea. That is it. That is it. Oh, not quite. How could we be wrong? Yeah, man. Rising Stars next week. Yes, that is it. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, apologies for the technical difficulties. We shall now resume regular programming. Thank you for your patience.
Good afternoon, everyone. We will be having our second match between Monig College and Church Teachers College. Monique in proposition slash government and Church Teachers College in opposition. The motion reads, this House believes that school funding should prioritize academic clubs, debate, science, etc. over sporting programs in schools. For the purposes of the viewing audience, I will go over the rules very quickly. Each speaker in the debate, each first pair of speakers has 7 minutes. Each second pair of speakers has 6 minutes. And each third pair of speakers have 5 minutes in which to speak. Between the first and last minute of the proposition, first proposition, second proposition, first opposition, second opposition, the first and last minutes constitute protected time. It means then that no points of information can be asked nor received. Between the allotted time, teams are encouraged to ask points of information, but to not badger, i.e., to not successively, rapidly ask a point of information, such to thwart the speaker. The last speaker cannot ask nor receive points of information, as that is a reply speech. They would have 5 minutes in which to speak. The end of their time will be indicated by the clap of this young lady's hands. Would you like to? You can clap. That is a clap you will hear to indicate that you have entered your protected last minute or that you have gone outside of your protected first minute. It means at the first minute mark, you'll hear that clap. At the last minute mark, you'll hear that clap. And at the point at which the total of your time is consumed, you will hear claps successively. Or the speaker, i.e. the chair, will tell you that you have elapsed your time. Okay. I think we are familiar with the rules in terms of the cross-examination. Each question is limited to 10 seconds, each response 45 seconds. It means then that you have to use your time wisely and ensure that the question that you have fits within that 10-second period and that your responses don't exceed the 45 seconds. Notably as well, only one person is allowed to ask a question, and the group can come together and respond to the question within the 45-second period. The cross-examination / cross-questioning will happen after the first pair of speeches and after the second pair of speeches, after which we'll have a 1-minute pause for the reply speakers to put the finishing touches on their arguments, and then we'll hear from the opposition reply speaker first. As a point of etiquette, as my panelists just said, no personal attacks on the profession of each other. We all know you're teachers and you're debating a motion that you probably wouldn't believe in as the teacher, except this is for the purposes of the debate. It is not a good look to come for the teacher and their profession and so on and so forth. Okay, we'll begin with the Prime Minister. Here.
Good morning, judges, esteemed members of the opposition, my distinguished colleagues, and our discerning audience. My name is Kadian Harilal, and I stand before you today as the government rises to affirm the motion that school funding should prioritize academic clubs over sporting programs in schools. In a developing nation like Jamaica, where every dollar invested in education must work twice as hard, we cannot afford the luxury of misplaced priorities. Let me begin by first defining the key terms in this motion, according to the Cambridge English Dictionary and Merriam-Webster. The word prioritize is defined as to decide that something is more important than other things and deal with it first. In this debate, we argue that academic clubs must come before sports programs when schools allocate resources. Funding means money given by a government or organization for an event or activity. Therefore, school funding refers to the financial resources allocated to schools by governments, institutions, or other bodies to support operations, programs, and the student activities. Academic clubs are defined as organized school groups that enrich learning in areas such as debate, science, robotics, math, or literacy, while sporting programs are organized extracurricular athletic activities such as football, basketball, netball, cricket, or track and field. Now, let's get into the real reason why we support this motion. First of all, academic clubs ensure equity and inclusion. Secondly, academic clubs build sustainable career paths. And thirdly, academic clubs often starve while sports clubs feast at two tables. My Deputy Prime Minister will elaborate on this very alarming truth. Let us take a look at how academic clubs ensure equity and inclusion. Academic clubs welcome diverse talents, learning styles, backgrounds, and abilities, while sporting programs are exclusive. It is just facts. Academic clubs do not discriminate based on physical and mental abilities. Remember, a sporting club is limited to how physically talented or athletic an individual proves to be. Not every child can run as fast as Shelley and Fraser Price, play football like Leon Bailey, or even swim like Alia Atkinson, but academic clubs fill that gap. 4-H clubs are active in hundreds of schools, teaching agriculture, environmental awareness, entrepreneurship, and any student can join regardless of athletic ability. The Junior Achievement Jamaica clubs run financial literacy and entrepreneurship in schools, which allow students to build business models, practice teamwork, and develop leadership skills. Again, Mr. Speaker, this is inclusive to all students and not just the sporty types. Judges, audience, the truth is that academic clubs promote a scientifically literate and critical thinking society. Let us put it to you the way Minister Darrell Vaz explained it. A scientifically literate society can better understand decisions of the government that are founded on scientific information, as well as promote science as a viable and rewarding career. This is from the JIS May 10, 2022 debate. My next point in sharing with you the benefits of prioritizing funding of academic clubs over sports program is the simple fact that academic clubs build sustainable career paths. Academic clubs equip students with competencies that transcend any single industry. While with sports, only a few students will enjoy a sustainable livelihood through professional sports. In other words, the skills gained in sports are often limited to physical performance and teamwork within a specific context. Why is this important? Academics, and by extension, academic clubs, encourage diversity in the workforce and open opportunities for industrial and economic advancements. While sports create a linear pathway with limited applications to other areas. Let us not go into fairy tales and step into reality. In Jamaica, only a small percentage of athletes actually make it big and earn a living through sports. Compared to academic clubs, students who participate in such clubs gain skills in public speaking, research, problem solving, critical thinking, analytical skills, and leadership. These skills are necessary in everyday life of an individual. For example, schools like Arden High and Campion College are well known for their strong debate and quiz programs, and year after year, students from these clubs emerge to receive prestigious scholarships both locally and internationally. Even more importantly, Mr. Speaker, is Jamaica's national development. The nation's development depends mostly on the education sector, as a country cannot aspire forward without its skilled workers who are its greatest assets. Prioritizing school funding for academic clubs means investing in human capital that will carry Jamaica as a whole into the future and onwards. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, this House should clearly stand with the government and agree that
We thank the Prime Minister for that very fine speech. We invite the Leader of the Opposition to give her responses. Hear, hear.
Guys, we invite you to cheer on the speakers when they come to the stage, yeah? Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, that's fine. Yes, they are. Sports has the power to change the world. It has the power to inspire. It has the power to unite people in a way that little else does. It speaks to the youth in a language they understand. Sports can create hope when there was only despair. Nelson Mandela 2000 Laureate World Sports Awards. Yet it is this very promise that the proposition seeks to crush by rerouting essential sports funding to inessential academic clubs. Honorable judges, chairperson, opponents, fellow teammates, and members of the audience, good afternoon. We, the opposition, refuse to stand by and watch the government implement such exclusionary proposals. The Cambridge Dictionary defines prioritization as to arrange in order of importance. Hence, this House strongly opposed the prioritization of school funding for academic clubs over sporting programs. In fact, Mr. Speaker, we see it as a campaign against the very purpose of education itself. I will explore the academic theories that support the inclusion of sports programs, the equity of funding across schools, not accepted at this time, and its impact on student engagement and motivation. Our second speaker will discuss the economic benefits of sports investments, its contribution to healthy living, and its key role in building brand Jamaica. Our final speaker will bring home our main points and dismantle any outrageous claims the proposition might have. I like that the Madam Prime Minister touched on inclusion, but I have a question. What about the students with special needs who are intellectually challenged? Are they able to succeed in quiz or debate clubs? Furthermore, not accepted at this time. Furthermore, not all sports clubs are about competition. Some of them are just for recreation. Firstly, let us explore Howard Gardner's theory of multiple intelligence. According to Simple Psychology 2025, it proposes that intelligence is not a single ability, but a collection of distinct types. One of these distinct types of intelligence, Mr. Speaker, is bodily kinesthetic, which, according to Northern Illinois University Center of Innovative Teaching and Learning, is the ability to control one's body movements and to handle objects skillfully. Student participation in sports activities provides a crucial opportunity to showcase this intelligence. More than that, we are proposing that developing kinesthetic intelligence is essential to all learning. The ability to coordinate movement is critical, not just for sports, but for fine motor skills used in writing, practical science, and vocational trades. By fostering kinesthetic intelligence, we lay the physical groundwork for success in other disciplines. The proposition's implied claim that academic clubs only nurture important intelligence is therefore categorically false. Furthermore, sports uniquely foster other kinds of intelligence, such as interpersonal intelligence through communication with peers and conflict management. Intrapersonal intelligence is in terms of discipline and resilience in sports, and even logical mathematical intelligence through performance analytics. Based on this well-researched theory, Mr. Speaker, to not accepted.
You mentioned that conflict management and
All right, here we see. I have to move on. Mr. Speaker, to not provide adequate funding to schools sports program is to limit access to equal educational opportunities for students. Every child can learn, every child must learn. But how can they learn if we exclude certain intelligence from doing so? They cannot, Mr. Speaker. That is why the proposition's proposal is truly an attack on education. Furthermore, Mr. Speaker, a paper by Dartmouth University entitled Normative Theories of Sports explores Sigmund Lowland, a professor of sports philosophy's theory, stating that the most superior performer should succeed based as much as possible on his work ethic, not his opportunities. Academics do not often conform to this principle, as they are inherently favored towards those who can afford books and extra lessons and memorize and regurgitate information at the snap of a finger. How accepted?
You mentioned conflict management and mathematical analysis. Is that directly taught in sports clubs?
It is not directly taught in sports club, but however, when you're doing the sports, conflicts will arise. If a boy step on your foot, how you go handle it? It teaches conflict management through that. However, sports are the great equalizer. They do not discriminate by wealth, background, or even learning style. To further the proposition's plan and exercise preference for academic clubs would make our education system biased and unfair. Additionally, take into consideration scholars such as Hodge et al. 2019 that note that black students are more likely to thrive in kinesthetic movement-based learning environments. Sports programs provide this avenue to foster pride, inclusion, and success in students. Let us examine Jamaica, where many schools are not so academia-centric and cannot in good conscience make a decision to shift funding to academic co-curriculars, when the majority of their student population is sport-oriented. Take schools such as Edwin Allen High School, who have dominated in the last decade in boys and girls champs and are renowned for their girls track and field team. What would happen if they were to rewrote majority of their fundings? Or St. Elizabeth Technical High School and their football team? These are the questions the proposition should ponder, because it seems as though they just want to act without taking into consideration the larger impact on these schools. Finally, Mr. Speaker, sports significantly impacts students' engagement and motivation. A report entitled The Impact of Physical Education and Sports, published in the Gleaner in 2016 by Jennifer Ellison Brown, found that studies indicated that participation in sports increased students' overall interest and commitment to schooling, as well as their engagement in more student-teacher contact, more positive attitudes about schooling, and more parent-school contact. Mr. Speaker, last minute? I rest my case.
We thank the Leader of Opposition for her fine speech. We ask the proposition to ask 3 questions of the proposition, and then we flip the arrangement afterwards. Yeah, so opposition asks 3 questions of the proposition first. Remember, your questions are limited to 10 seconds. Your responses are limited to 45 seconds.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. On the matter of equality proposition, do you believe that sports clubs promote discrimination, given the fact that not all sporting programs or sporting activities are competitive? Do you believe that sports clubs inherently promote discrimination, given the fact that not all sporting programs are competitive, but some are just for recreation?
Opposition, your response? Your response, rather. Next question.
Okay, thank you. On the matter of sustainability, how much more sustainable would academic clubs become in schools if you reprioritize funding, given the fact that they already do not require extensive funding, given their nature?
All right. So I would like to cite an article from the Jamaica Information Service that cited that the Jamaica College robotics team that went on to Texas to win the Motivate Award cited that one of their biggest challenges to win the award was that they had a lack of resources, which would have directly correlated to a lack of funding to the academic clubs.
Next question.
Okay. In your world, since the burden of proof is on you to prove why academic funding should be prioritized, what would funding look like on your side if you should reprioritize it? Given a school like Manchester High, how would it look?
The very nature of the meaning of the word prioritize is that it is done in a manner that is suitable to the needs of the individual. Therefore, funding for our side wouldn't exactly look skewed to one side, but it would take into consideration the things that need to be funded rather than completely isolating them away from funding because it's being secured for sporting clubs.
All right, we thank the opposition for those 3 questions. We invite the proposition to do likewise.
Good afternoon, everyone. How do sporting programs prepare students for careers outside of athletics?
That is a very good question. Thank you. No, sporting programs are able to prepare students for opportunities outside of academics as it provides scholarships for them to be able to pursue academics. So for example, GC Foster College is a perfect example of students who have been involved in high schools and then are able to access funding to move over into academia, and they are still able to do other things outside of academics. So they have their learning education, plus they have their skill. So that is why prioritizing funding for sports does become a priority and is important.
Next question.
Right. Since scholarships are provided by, like I said, GC Foster College, and it is an athletic scholarship, doesn't that go to discriminate against those who cannot possibly meet the physical requirements to even try to get those scholarships, while academic clubs gives everyone an equal opportunity?
Thank you. Response?
No, it does not. Just as how there are scholarships available for those who do athletics, there are scholarships available for those who do academics, such as the MOE scholarship for geography, science, mathematics, and special education, Chase Fund for EC, and so much more other scholarships.
And to use up our time, and there are way more academic funding available for academic pursuits in academia rather than opportunities to access funding to pursue sporting ventures. So you have to look at it from that holistic point of view proposition.
Last question.
Okay, so the third question. If sports already receive large private sponsorships and community funding from brands like Grace Kennedy and Digital, why should schools divert limited academic funding to sports instead of academic clubs that lack such support?
Thank you. Response?
Could you repeat that question? It was kind of...
If sports already receive large private sponsorships and community funding from brands like Grace Kennedy and Digital, why should schools divert limited academic funding to sports instead of clubs, academic clubs that lack such support?
Well, I think it was on your side that said that this funding should be contextual and based on context. So there are certain schools that would require funding based on their context if it is that they specialize in a specific area. So I'm using your point to rebut you. For example, New Forest High School is not a school that is academically inclined. You cannot push academic clubs and fund academic clubs if the students are not academically inclined. But if you see that there's an inclination towards sports, you will fund sports in that way so that you can harness their potential, so that you can therefore pivot them into academics later on, so that they become holistic individuals rather than just having a niched perspective within the context of them being in schools.
All right. We thank both teams for that exciting period of cross-questioning. We call the Deputy Prime Minister. Here. Ready when you are.
Good morning, good afternoon, judges, esteemed members of the opposition, my distinguished colleagues, and our discerning audience. My name is Ronaldina Brown, your Deputy Prime Minister. The opposition speaker would have us believe that Howard Gardner's multiple theories of intelligences are only unique to sport programs. That's a baseless claim, as academic clubs do promote kinesthetic, linguistic, and differentiated learning exercises that cater to students with diverse needs, even those who are artistic and academically challenged. No matter the angle the opposition chooses, be it health, politics, economy, or community, their argument collapses on one undamned fact. The core purpose of academic clubs is to actualize the mandate of schools, which seeks to develop young minds, their skills and talents. Let me now affirm some of the claims made by the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister has already demonstrated that academic clubs promote equity and inclusion, and that they foster sustainable career paths for our young people. Building on that foundation, I rise today to expose an alarming truth we cannot afford to ignore. While sports in Jamaica feast at two tables, academic clubs are left to starve. Mr. Speaker, what do I mean by this? Sports enjoy not one, but two steady streams of resources from public allocations distributed by the government and millions in private sponsorships disbursed by corporate giants such as Digicel and Grace Kennedy, who pour large fundings into Manning Cup, the Casa Cup, and Champs year after year. According to the Ministry of Education and use 2023 budgetary allocations, over 1 million Jamaican dollar was dedicated to sports infrastructure in schools, while no comparable earmark exists for robotics teams, debate and public speaking societies, or even science club. Mr. Speaker, when one area is already overflowing, isn't it only logical to redirect resources to the side that builds our intellectual capital? As was mentioned by the Prime Minister, academic clubs foster the diverse talents of students regardless of their physical abilities. We are not dismissing physical strength. We are merely questioning why intellectual strength is consistently not the priority, even though it is the true driving force of governance, innovation, and economic growth. Mr. Speaker, do we really want a Jamaica that celebrates fleeting victories or one that invests in lasting solutions and groundbreaking research that can transform this nation? As Minister Philippa Williams emphasized in 2022, Jamaica must strengthen STEM and innovation in our schools if we are to achieve Vision 2030 and compete globally. Vision 2030 demands a critically thinking, literate, technologically driven, and sustainable society. That future cannot be actualized if schools don't prioritize academic clubs. The pressing reality is that schools routinely channel the majority of their funding into sports programs, while academic clubs are left scrambling for the most basic resources. In fact, Education Minister Dr. Dana Marx-Dixon recently admitted that the laboratories in Jamaica, 14 technical high schools, are in a deplorable state, in urgent need of modernization to align with global technological advances. Mr. Speaker, with such a stark reality, how can we expect to develop student skills in creativity, collaboration, and problem solving across the STEAM disciplines? How can we meaningfully advance our science clubs, robotic teams, and engineering societies to nurture a generation of young minds driven by innovation? Furthermore, the impact is outrageously profound. In the digital global economy, innovation, not athleticism, must be the engine of national progress. According to the Global Innovation Index, Jamaica ranks 78th worldwide in innovation performance, a stark warning that we are neglecting the very thinkers, creators, and problem solvers who emerge from the academic clubs we must prioritize. As was highlighted by the Prime Minister, academic clubs are not luxuries. They are incubators for future engineers, policymakers, and innovators. But they cannot thrive if they are the afterthought, while sports dine richly at both the public and private tables. So I ask you, Mr. Speaker, what kind of Jamaica do we want? Do we want a nation that entertains the world for 90 minutes on a football field, or one that educates the world for generations with innovation, critical thinking, and intellectual excellence? Mr. Speaker, if you want a critical thinking society, if you want a workforce that can diversify industries and transform this nation's future, then you must agree with the proposition. The only way to do so is to prioritize academic clubs over sports programs. Prioritizing is not about eliminating the funds of sports programs, but rather allocating a bit more funding to academic clubs. This debate is decisively about funding, as it is about fairness, foresight, and the kind of Jamaica we wish to build. Let us not feed one side while starving the other. We propose that a fixed portion of at least 60% of extracurricular funding be directed towards academic clubs. Let us make intellect the heart of our investment strategy.
Thank you, Speaker. We thank the Deputy Prime Minister for that spirited speech. We invite the Deputy Leader of Opposition. Hear, hear.
Mic check. No. Okay.
Ready when you are.
A nation without sports is a nation without strength, without health, without unity. What good is academic brilliance if students are too unhealthy to learn, too excluded to belong, and too disconnected from the culture that defines them. Therefore, to prioritize academic clubs while neglecting sports program is like learning to swim on dry land, motion without meaning, effort without results. A country cannot thrive if it funds the mind and starves the body, because a weakened body simply cannot carry the brightest brain. Mr. Speaker, honorable judges, opponents, my teammates, ladies and gentlemen, a pleasant afternoon to you all. Mr. Speaker, when you think of Jamaica brand, what comes to mind? The rhythm of reggae, the pride of our people, the lightning speed of Usain Bolt and Shelley and Fraser Price. These icons did not come from debate or science club. They came from the very sports program that schools invested in. So to prioritize academics, clubs over sports program is to forget what truly shapes our nation's identity. Listen now, sport is not a distraction to learning. They complemented Mr. Proposition team. They teach teamwork, discipline, resilience, qualities that build character far beyond the classroom. All right. Brand Jamaica stands tall on the stage because of our music, culture, and our athletes. If we neglect funding sports club in schools, we risk dimming the very light that makes our country shine globally. Because it is through these very programs athletes are recognized to represent us. Remember, Mr. Speaker, when a Jamaican athlete win, whether they come from uptown, downtown, side town, or middle town, the whole we celebrate. Not true? All right. So, as the second speaker, my case rests on two pillars. First, sport generates real economic opportunities, and it's a safeguard for students and students' health and well-being. Let us get to the meat of the matter. Sports create an avenue for students who may not be academically inclined to still achieve success. As we are speaking now in Jamaica, there are secondary schools that actively recruit students who can run, play football, play netball, play volleyball, any sort of ball. And while tertiary institutions locally and internationally are actually offering scholarship to these athletes to compete while they are finishing their degree. So tell me, Mr. Speaker, if sports open door, why are you trying to close them? The success of these athletes goes far beyond personal gain. It creates scholarships, builds schools, drives community development projects. Even Serena Williams, the American tennis star,
Point of information.
has not accepted at this time. Sure. The American tennis star has invested in the Jamaica education and development, not because of debate or our science club, but because she was given the opportunity through school sports club as an athlete, and now she's giving back to support education and development. So sports, therefore, is not just about competition, Mr. Prime Minister. It is an economy, a passport, and a platform for progress. For instance, the D'Costa Club and the sporting program in Jamaica receive sponsorship, and major brands like Flo, Digicel, KFC, and many other directly supporting athletes and school sports initiatives. Right? So, Mr. Speaker, to prioritizing funds for sports clubs, and it is not optional, it is essential, because sports give Jamaica youth what academics alone cannot: upward mobility, financial independence, and international recognition. Secondly, students' health and well-being. Sports is Jamaica's first line of defense against growing health crises such as diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol level. The Ministry of Health launched the Jamaica Move initiative to combat these lifestyle diseases, and a strong sports culture would not only reinforce this campaign, but also promote a healthier lifestyles from an early age by encouraging students to stay active, maintain discipline, and embrace physical fitness outside their physical education class. Sports help reduce the long-term medical costs while creating a generation that is productive, resilient, and health conscious. Mr. Speaker, what good is academic excellence if our students are too unhealthy to enjoy it? In conclusion, to starve sports is to starve Jamaica of its strength, its health, and its very identity. Academics may fill the brain, but sports fuel the body, the spirit, and the nation. Without sports, brand Jamaica loses its shine. Without health, even brilliance fades. That is why the opposition stands firm. Fund sports, fund our future.
We thank the Deputy Leader of Opposition for that spirited speech. We invite the opposition once more to ask 3 questions of the proposition, after which point we'll flip the arrangement.
Thank you. To the proposition, is it the opinion of the government that, because as you said in your speech that research and innovation and growth can only be derived from science, like science is the only academic area. So is it of your opinion that growth can only be actualized in academics and it cannot be actualized in sports?
We did not isolate growth to just academics alone. What we mentioned was that depending on medals and awards is not a sustainable model for economic growth in Jamaica.
Okay, thank you. Now, there is no direct line item in school subvention for physical education and sports improvement. But there are more subvention in our budgets for academic infrastructure. So don't you think it would be your opinion that monies derived from donors be used for improvements in sports programs?
Repeat the question, please.
Now, there's a thing that the government has called subvention. This is the money that schools get. Now, there is no direct line item in subventions for physical education improvement. What is there is a line item for academic infrastructure improvement. So don't you think that when schools get additional money from donors, it would be only right to prioritize this funding to put it towards sports programs?
Well, would we prioritize putting that funding towards sports programs while there are schools that don't have laboratories and certain equipments that they would need to thrive in the innovation industry?
Next question.
Okay, final question. So let's create a hypothetical situation. You're in the capacity of an administrator. So in good conscience, would you reprioritize sports co-curricular funding, especially knowing...
Exceeded 10 seconds. Would you like to ask it again in 10 seconds?
Sure. As an administrator, hypothetically, in good conscience, would you reprioritize sports co-curricular funding, especially knowing the benefits of these co-curriculars to students?
Right. According to an article in Observer 2023, targeted interventions to improve literacy in schools is drastically underfunded. And according to the 2019 PEP results, 33% of the students could not read, 56% could barely write. Now, living in a world where sports are funded very well, do you see an improvement in our education system? Oh, wait, sorry. No, there's no improvement. So it stands to reason that funding should be directed towards more academic pursuits to bring up those grades.
We thank the opposition for those questions. We invite the proposition to ask questions of the opposition. Here, here.
It's common knowledge that diet and genetics are greater or equal contributors to lifestyle illnesses. Are you saying that sports alone or lack thereof is the major contributor towards those illnesses?
We are in no way saying that. I think we have continuously taken the motion out of context. We're still talking about co-curricular activities. These benefits can be derived from sporting programs if sporting programs are structured comprehensively. GC Foster College has structured sporting programs, so there is a theoretical component when it comes down to education, and then there's a practical component where you're talking about how do people engage in sporting activities and enjoy sporting activities and also compete in sporting activities. So that comprehensive approach can help us to eliminate and also mitigate these lifestyle diseases that we experience in our society.
Final question.
All right, so wouldn't investing in science clubs like 4-H, Red Cross, and Environmental Science Club give students better wellness knowledge and practical skills that benefit Jamaica's healthcare system long term?
I think you want to trap me with that response, but here's what I have to say to that, right? So this type of education already exists within the curriculum. And of course, we know that co-curricular activities are the environment that extends learning outside of the classroom. Now, it is your same side of argument, and it's also the side of argument that we're saying that it is not to defund or completely eradicate funding. What we're saying is that within the context of certain things take precedence, certain things are more important, and when we can establish and structure our sports programs to include comprehensive education, as well as I said, the involvement in the physical sport, then
All
we
right,
will be well on
time.
our way.
Thank you. That was your final question, right? Yeah. We pause for a minute such that you can put the final touches on your reply speeches, and then we'll begin with the opposition reply speaker. That is time We invite the third speaker on opposition to deliver his reply. Here, here.
Mike. Chairperson, honorable judges, opponents, and valued audience. The motion at hand here is about co-curricular activities, and I think within the context of the motion, it has been taken out of scope. So what I'm going to do now is bring it back to scope and help us to really understand what is important for this motion. Now, the proposition, wants us to make a choice between two vital forms of co-curricular activity. They present this idea that, academics needs to be funded, and they keep saying academics. We're talking specifically about co-curricular involvement, which extends learning outside of the classroom. What we're saying on side opposition is that within the context of schools, there's already establishment of academic programs that would help to extend these academic clubs and societies. And as such, the infrastructure is already there to facilitate the extension of these academic clubs and societies, which will not require significant amount of investment. Now, we are talking from a budgetary perspective. So let me give you an example. I'm Andrew Holness, I have Babsy on this side, and I have Daryl on this side. Babsy comes. Andrew, I need some money for sports. Daryl comes. Andrew, I need money for science. You're going to tell Andrew that he should, in good conscience, do what? Who should he give more money? If he gives more money to Daryl, it is going to seem disrespectful to Babsy. And if he gives more money to Babsy, well, it will be better for the country because everybody loves sports. Now, what we're saying here's a mechanism that they have failed to really address, and we are talking specifically about the context of schools. We're not talking about the wider society, the wider economy. We're talking about the microcosm of schools. So here's what is happening, and here's how we're going to show that we have won. One, the demand for resources. Now, when you look at two clubs, academic clubs, and you talk about sporting clubs, the infrastructure is already there to facilitate the extension of academic clubs and societies, while, generally speaking, the infrastructure for sporting clubs has to be built out. Additional equipment is needed. You have to get coaches. You have to sponsor traveling. You have to, and you guys said that the innate nature of sports is that they're competitive. But there is a lot of infrastructure that has to be bought and built and provided for sporting activities, while it may not be so needed on the side of academics. And so as an administrator, I'm a principal, I need to balance that. And so I'm going to put my resources where, from an economic perspective, more infrastructure development is needed, and that is in sports. Now, they want to just slash everything, defund sports. Science is more important, and they keep saying science is the only academic club that exists. They want to like the black people in America, defund the police, defund sport. We are not defunding everything. We are reprioritizing for economic benefit. Now, we are talking about allocation efficiency, the economics here. When you look at the microcosm of a school, and you are talking about the resources in a school, remember that one specific co-curricular demands more resources. And so from an allocation efficiency point of view, you will allocate more to the co-curricular that demands more, because, as I said, the infrastructure already exists to support the academic clubs and societies. We are not saying that we are going to take away all of their funding. What we're saying is that they still get funding, but the majority of the funding needs to go to the sporting activities that demand and require more financial resources. That is simply what we're saying. Now, the third unique extension that we're providing is the catastrophic impact on school dynamics. Now, here's the government's argument. They want to create fragmentation, where academic clubs, they create silos of interest for specific groups. They are not generally school-wide. They don't facilitate the development of school spirit.
and school pride. Because if you have robotics club and science club in one part of the school doing God knows what experiment, and you don't know what's happening over there, but you have your sports clubs who come up to the fore, you see them training, you see them involved in the activity, you see them working, they are doing their thing. That cultivates school spirit, school pride, and school culture. And again, it is all contextual. And then we need to understand the idea of prioritization. Again, what we are saying on the opposition side is not to defund the program, but we are putting the resources where the resources are demanded. And then when we talk about this idea of allocation efficiency, there are spillovers, there are benefits to investment in sports. So this is why the opposition has won this debate. Thank you.
We thank the opposition reply speaker for that very fine speech. We invite the government reply speaker as well to deliver his reply and to close out the entirety of the debate. Hear, hear.
I can speak loud too. I can move my hands about and grab your attention. But I am doing this not because I can. It's not performative. It is because I have the conviction. Because we came with the receipts. We came with the references. I know that we won this competition. My name is Orlando Gentles from D. Money College. I am your third speaker. My roles are to first enforce what has been said by the government, to rebut the dismissive and incorrect claims of the opposition, and to prove to you why it is that we have this in the bag. Before I begin, allow me to point out that the opposition keeps on throwing back into our face that we keep on saying that, remember, it is about distilling and to disperse funds fairly. But at the same time, the whole of their arguments include strong wording such as defund, crush, close doors. If that is not absolutive language, I do not know what it is. We are the persons that are sticking to the moot and are saying that priority should go towards academic funding. Thank you. Moving on. Today, the proposition has put forward a near irrefutable case as we've dismantled the opposition's questionable arguments and galvanized our own. At the end of the day, Jamaica, there's only one question that needs to be asked. What kind of Jamaica do you want to live in? Should we continue along this path of promoting fanatical support for sports, leading to a non-critical thinking society? Or should we support the vision of Minister Vaz and this government that by creating a foundation for academic clubs to strive, they will create a more critically thinking society? We think that the answer is discernible. Our Prime Minister demonstrated academics imbue skills necessary for flourishing careers for its students due to its entry-level requirements and the nature of academic clubs, which is to the fostering and developing, as well as to the attending of all intellects and physicalities. There is no exception. While athletic clubs serve as a palliative care, providing brief mental and physical reprieve, should no injuries occur on the field. They had mentioned health in their argument, but what about all of those injuries sustained during clubs? A study in the Caribbean Medical Journal 2025 shows that most injuries in high school occur during recreational activities, and the most injured parties are young men. They fail to mention that athletics is not the only contributing factor towards lifestyle disease. Most notably, the 400-meter sprinter, Mr. Cameron, suffered from diabetes, type 2 diabetes, mind you, so he wasn't born with it, type 2 diabetes, while he was training for the 400 meters. So how is somebody who is athletically fit struggling with diabetes? Because it encompasses genetic and dietary factors as well. So the burden of solving obesity is not strictly on sporting programs.
Secondly, athletic clubs provide few notable benefits. However, only a few will ever reach the acclaim to benefit from a career in sports, while the rest are left behind. If they want a career, that applies their sports knowledge, they have limited places where they can go to get a career. The few beneficial traits mentioned, such as discipline and teamwork, are not exclusive to athletics. They fail to mention critical thinking skills, although they made a hardy attempt at sport analytics. But the last time that I checked, when I went to my sporting meet, nobody told me about the statistics of which runner or which tennis player was playing or what formation works. Right. The critical thinking skills that are developed by academic schools are more applicable to STEAM and non-STEAM oriented jobs. Sports feeds at 2 tables while academic only has 1. Academic feeds from mainly 1. While academics does benefits from some outside support, majority of the support bringing to schools from outside are from government bodies and public and private institutions. Grace Kennedy in 2023, along with 2 other corporations, donated more than $170 million towards boys and girls champs, while Grace Kennedy himself also only disperses $25 million per year in scholarship. So tell me, which one of those is disparaged? In closing, sporting programs should not be defunded, but the priority should be placed on academic programs which prioritize growth in our economy by introducing innovation and including industries in Jamaica. Thank you.
We thank the government reply speaker for closing out the entirety of the debate. We thank the debaters for a very spirited match, a match that I thoroughly enjoyed. We invite them both to shake hands in the spirit of competition.